your age of your calf. 3 weeks of age or greater, the older the calf is, the less vulnerable he is, to your scour. That's a big advantage. And then the last thing is, genetic information that's available.
Hello and welcome to the Beef Edge, the Teagasc Beef podcast, for all your latest news, information and advice for Irish beef farmers. I'm Catherine Egan, and on this week's episode, I'm joined by Teagasc DairyBeef 500 advisor Tommy Cox with some key advice for sourcing dairy beef calves this spring. Tommy, you're very welcome. It's a busy time of year sourcing dairy beef calves at the moment on the DairyBeef 500 farms.
Yeah, look, we're in the middle of calving on dairy herds right across the country. DairyBeef 500 clients will be actively sourcing calves. We'll be up on over 2,000 calves purchased annually on our 15 DairyBeef 500 monitor farms. So the majority of these calves are actually purchased in the spring, more coinciding with the calving pattern of our dairy herd. So there is a lot of calves coming onto farms at the moment.
And what are the main things, Tommy, that farmers are looking out for sourcing these calves?
Look, I suppose the main thing you want is an animal that's not going to give you any problems or any bother. What you're looking for is a healthy calf, ideally from a very trusted source, then an animal that will go on and perform well right throughout its lifetime, right up until slaughter. Look, at the input costs have gone up dramatically over the past 12 months, even a bit longer. So you're looking for value for money within these calves where possible. The age of the calf is something that, we will be honing in fairly strongly on. You'd want a calf, the older the better, but you're looking for a calf at least 3 weeks of age or greater if possible. And then, last but probably by no means least, the genetics of the calf. You want as much information as possible on the genetics of the calf, and that'll give you a good indication how that animal will also go on and perform for you.
In relation to the genetics of the calf, I presume you're referring to the dairy beef index and now looking at the commercial beef value. What are farmers looking for when they're looking at both of those indexes?
Yeah, look, I suppose the dairy beef index would be more geared towards dairy farms. It's looking for them to select a bull that has beef traits, and then that will pass on to the genetics to the offspring. So, but us as DairyBeef 500 farmers or beef farmers, what we're looking at more would be the new commercial beef value, which was launched by the ICBF in late 2021. So look, at the CBV is a new tool. It's there to assist farmers in selecting animals, solely for beef production, and that's what our DairyBeef 500 farmers would be, taking these animals fully through to slaughter. So it's a tool for non-breeding farmers. It'll give an insight into genetic merit of the animals based on their parentage. So it has the 5 key traits that you'll be looking for as a beef farmer. The carcass weight, the carcass conformation, carcass fat, docility, and feed intake and feed efficiency. So they're all important traits a beef farmer needs to know. So look, if it's used correctly, and I suppose when further advances are made on it, it should identify these higher merit animals, and it should identify these faster growing, better shaped animals, and more feed efficient animals, and then inevitably should leave a better margin for beef farmers going forward.
And you mentioned there, Tommy, the traits. For farmers that are looking at sourcing calves, what are the desired traits that they're looking out for, particularly from a health point of view when they're buying calves?
Yeah, so look, at the appearance of a calf, it's hard to tell a calf whether he's going to, at birth, how he's going to go on and perform a slaughter. But as you say, the health traits, look at what you're looking for is a calf that's up and he's alert. He's mooching around with the rest of the calves. He's not lying in the corner of the pen on his own. He's a clean, damp nose. There's no sign of any mucus out of the nose. Bright-eyed. He's up. He's feeding or picking at a bit of straw in the pen or a bit of concentrates that's in the pen. There's no any sign of any lameness or any navel infection or anything like that. He's able to bear his weight on all his limbs. Ideally, the navel cord, you'd like to show signs of that had been treated with some sort of a disinfectant, generally iodine, so it's dry, it's withered up, and it's clean looking. And then, just suppose in the shed of calves, you'd like to see nice relaxed breathing, no signs of any coughing or any mucus from the nose, or any signs of pulls or draws on calves. That might be an underlying pneumonia issue there.
Tommy, I suppose we've seen from the Green Acres programme and now moving into the DairyBeef 500 programme, the source of the calves greatly influences the disease risks on the rearing farm. What factors are most important, do you think?
Yeah, definitely. Look, at a young calf, he hits the ground, he's fully naive. So how he's in his first few hours of birth, how that calf is treated and to build his immune system will, it'll tell to that calf going forward. So look at what we're seeing on Dairy Beef 500 farms is that, the number of source herds that you're getting calves from, you try and keep it to a minimum where possible. Just a lot of calves come onto these farms, but when you mix these calves with, from a lot of sources, that's where potential disease outbreaks. So trying to keep the number of source herds to a minimum where possible. Look at what we're seeing working best is for calves are sourced directly from dairy farms. They're generally a lot healthier than those purchased maybe through marts or through dealers, where calves might leave the dairy farm in the morning and they mightn't arrive onto the beef farm maybe the following evening, so they have a long time standing in a mart, possibly going back to a yard, and then they're brought to the farm for rearing. So that can create a lot of stress, and as well as that, it creates a lot of mixing with other calves, so exposes them to risks. So if you are buying from directly from dairy farmers, taking a look around the farm, and seeing the farm's attention to detail, see that the calf get adequate amount of colostrum, asking a few questions, and that'll tell you a lot about how well the calf would have been reared to date.
You mentioned there, Tommy, the importance of transporting. Most calves will be transported some distance to reach the final destination. What should farmers be considering for the transporting of the calves?
I know it's not possible to source calves locally, but where possible, it's definitely a good advantage. But I suppose one thing we need to be mindful of is the regulations. Calves must be at least 10 days of age before they travel in excess of 100 kilometers. So that's probably one thing we need to be fully mindful of. I suppose a few tips. Look at the obvious things. No overcrowding in trailers. Calves with adequate space to maybe even lie down. Nice fresh spread of straw. Trailer or the trailer is well disinfected. To prevent any cross contamination from previous animals within the trailer. The driver obviously drives slowly, that you're not shaking the calves around. They're all simple things, but they're things that needs to be consideration given to. Ideally, if the calf is leaving the dairy farm or wherever he's leaving, ideally if he's fed 2 to 3 liters of milk, close enough to loading, and it'll keep him full for the journey. But I wouldn't overfeed the calves either. Just give them 2 liters or so, and that'll keep them going for the journey. Like that, out from that, there's the basics. Then just calves of adequate space, adequate airflow through the trailer, and then I suppose when he arrives on the farm of origin, get electrolytes into him first of all, to rehydrate them, replenish them, and then start them off on their milk feeding program.
So how would you manage that calf from once he lands on the farm, maybe for the first 24 or 48 hours?
Yeah, look, depending on how far he came, if he came a good distance, ideally try and give him access to obviously a clean, fresh bed, access to straw and concentrates, and try and get to at least 2 liters of electrolytes in him shortly after arrival on the farm, and then possibly electrolytes into him the following morning, and then start him off on his milk feeding program.
And when it comes to purchasing calves, you mentioned there across the Dairy Beef 500 farms, there's over 2,000 calves sourced and reared on these farms. What are the key learnings from the farmers?
Yeah, look, at the key learnings was with regards health, keeping the number of source herds to a minimum was the big thing there, with trying to improve. Building a relationship with a dairy farmer, if you can build a relationship with a dairy farmer, maybe have a bit of an input into the genetics they're using, try and get the ideal calf that you want on the ground. It's a win-win for both situations. The dairy farmer has a reliable source for his calves, and you as a beef farmer are getting a reliable calf, a well-reared calf. So, that relationship directly off farms, if you had an issue with farms previously, obviously you're not going to go back there. So when you get that relationship built, it'll it improves the thing going forward. I suppose another lesson what we see from the numbers wise, as you said there's close to 2,000 calves reared on farms, but what we see is a high number or high proportion of them would be your black and white Frisian calves. There's in 2022 those close to 1,300 Frisian calves of the 2,000. So there's a high proportion of calves that are being purchased across our farms actually Frisian bred calves.
That's great, Tommy. I suppose you've covered a lot of topics with regard health, genetics and the sourcing of the calves. What would be the top 3 points for farmers going out buying calves in the coming weeks?
So look, I suppose the calf source, if you have a relationship built, you have calf from a trusted source. He knows he's after getting enough colostrum. That he's not going to bring in any disease on the farm. That's a big thing, So your calf source, your age, your calf, 3 weeks of age or greater, the older the calf is, the less vulnerable he is, to your scour. So that's a big advantage. And then the last thing is, genetic information that's available. The sire ideally it must be recorded with the animal, because you want to know what the genetic potential of that animal is going forward. So you must have a sire recorded with them. And then when you have the sire recorded, trying and ensure that the sire recorded is a reasonably good quality beef characteristics as well, so that animal will go on and perform at slaughter for the calf rearing farm.
That's great, Tommy. And there's further details on all the calf rearing process available through the Teagasc DairyBeef 500 newsletter.
Or the Teagasc website in the DairyBeef 500 section, there will be Teagasc or fact sheets as well on various times of the year. So it will be covering the calf rearing phase and the transition to grass. So all that information is available, Catherine.
Thanks very much, Tommy.
Thanks very much.
That's all for this week's episode, and my thanks to Tommy for joining me on the show. You can catch up on all other shows and interviews from the Beef Edge podcast on the Teagasc website at teagasc.ie, or you can listen on Apple and Google Podcasts as well as Spotify. Don't forget to rate, review and subscribe so you never miss a show. For all other updates from our beef programme, keep an eye on our Twitter and Facebook pages. Until next time, I'm Catherine Egan, and thanks for listening.